I'm Tom White, CEO of Five Values.
And I'm Andy Hawkins, C3PO, Chief People, Planet and Purpose Officer of Business on Purpose.
It always makes me smile every time you say that. I think it's amazing, it's fantastic. Andy, thank you for coming here today for the Q&A on B Corp.
Yeah, so it started, I've been in tech most of my life, and I started my own tech consultancy a couple of years ago, put that through B Corp, struggled a little bit, but the day after I got my B Corp certification, my first mate, Darryl, gave me a ring and said, Andy, we want B Corp as well, can you give us a hand? Of course I was happy to help him as much as I could, but within the first month, I had 5 mates call me. So 2 years on, I've helped 180 businesses. There's a huge demand for it, and it's a really brilliant thing for any company to go through.
Wow, amazing. So, I've known the B Corp for about a decade, and the truth is I was kind of ignorant. I didn't really give it much time or justice. I believed it's something that eco-friendly green businesses were involved with, and that a recruitment and staffing company couldn't really have an effect. But it wasn't until I really got under the skin of what B Corp businesses were doing and the general mission did I realise that it's a really, really good fit, and that any business in any industry can benefit from going through the B Corp certification. The reason for now is because we just come through an incredibly challenging period for everyone in the world. Once in a lifetime pandemic, which has forced people to really reflect and think about where they want to go and what they want to produce and do with their lives. And I had the same kind of realization of where I wanted to take the business. And so I felt it was timely that we did something with more purpose, and that we really looked at our mission, vision and purpose of the company, and that's why we're here, and that's why we've gone through.
Nice. So quite often I'll say to any business owner, do you run an ethical business? And of course 100% of them say, yes I do. But when I say to them, well how ethical are you? How do you measure that? And how do you compare with other businesses? Many of those business owners can't really answer those questions. So for me, going through the impact assessment, going through the B Corp journey, helps you actually be able to answer those questions honestly yourself, first of all. And then with the audit process that you go through, you're then able to actually verify that score and what you've said, and actually reflect that out into the public domain. So it's not just what I'm saying, what I've chosen to write on my website. This is what I think has been publicly verified, and I can be absolutely sure and confident that this is what I'm doing. I'm using my business as a force for good.
Excellent. Do you know what? I think that's a really poignant question and a bit of an elephant in the room. I'm going to answer this in a way that you answered my question when we met many months ago, and I asked you the same question, and it was quite enlightening the way that you answered it. And I think you'll find that there are some people wanting to do this as a tick box exercise to increase engagement, to increase marketability in their business. But going through a journey, they will be educating themselves actually as to the virtues of why this is so important, why we should be doing something thoughtful and meaningful in our business. And so I think the answer to the question is, even if there is some that are doing that, it's with hope that come certification, that their eyes will be opened as to why this is a good thing. And I think, largely, for myself as well, embarking on this journey, in the earlier question that you mentioned, I think how much impact can a recruitment business have? Well, more than if they didn't have it, right? And I think that's really important. I don't think there's any bad repercussion from doing this. I think even if you don't have a direct impact, there's things that you can do in the future which can help. So I absolutely believe that it's a great step for everyone to take, and more and more people should be inspired because of it.
Totally agree. There is no downside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, social media lit up, and I had a few people contact me directly about that, saying how can it be? For those that don't know, Nespresso is owned by a parent company which is Nestle, which many would consider to be one of the top 3 most polluting corporations in the world. How can that happen? Firstly, I'd say I don't have any direct knowledge of what Nespresso did to go through that impact assessment. So I'm saying it's based on assumptions. But what I would say is, even if they have got a not particularly healthy impairment, by Nespresso going through it, firstly, I can trust the audit team. They would have not got through and not become B Corp. I trust the audit team would be allowed to have done that. And secondly, Nespresso, in going through that process, would have learned an awful lot. And it's not a walk in the park. You can't just accidentally fall off a log and become a B Corp. You've got to make real effort. So I trust that Nespresso has been put through that process rigorously and would have answered all the right questions and doing the right things. I hope in Nespresso doing that, that is going to have an impact on parent Nestle, that they're going to see that this is a good thing to do, and that over the next few years they will be able to embed some of those practices and processes within Nestle, and it will ultimately have a better impact on a much wider range of businesses. Time will tell. Nespresso will be recertified in 2.5 years' time, and if they've said things that they're not able to back up, they will lose their certification. But my hope is that they will encourage others within the Nestle family to improve, and overall, Nestle will then become a better company. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's trust the process and hope that they do improve the overall bigger parent.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think if they can do that and see positive effects from it, it's likely that the parent company and the subsidiaries will do the same. And as you say, it's not something you can just walk into and do. You've really got to do it, and you've really got to improve on it. And I'd go further on that, actually. So, I think any business, there's no harm in making profit. And, not at all. And B Corp isn't about stopping making profit or stopping creating something special. It's just about having meaning and purpose, and actually having a consideration to the wider planet and people that are here, right? And that surely has to be the way. So I think I agree with you. It's a good thing that they've done, and hopefully others will follow suit in similar situations in other businesses. Excellent. So I think the main thing for me in going through this process of rebranding to 5 values was becoming authentic and compelling with our offering. And so the 3 things that we are really proud of are our partnership with Ecology, local Bristol business, to offset carbon footprint and emissions. That's really the tip of where we want to go in the future when it comes to sustainability, imploring that people in the office lead a more sustainable life in how they interact. We developed the campaign called 100 Hours. 100 Hours is where we give every single team member in the business, regardless of their function, 100 hours per year to give back to the community. I coined the phrase service in the community, right? So well-being, holistic, volunteering type work. And the idea behind that, Andy, was that it's quite easy to sign off a check, actually, for corporate social responsibility, but it's harder to give your time, because that time today could be worth X amount of money, but in the future, with some high earners in the business, let's say, it could be worth considerably more. So those two steps are something I'm really proud of and something that we've done. And there's lots of other initiatives that we're doing in the future, such as ULife, which we've just rolled out as well, which is a healthcare benefit package that we have for people who are rewarded for being more active.
Nice.
Right? And they can actually get benefits that they can use and spend, tokens, etc., by taking, taking the walk to work as opposed to driving in a car or cycling and so on and so forth. So it's a great gamification tool, and everything that we think of now is on this concept. We look at the B Corp directory and we think, are there B Corp businesses where we can interact and pump money back into the circular economy that is B Corps, from merchandise, food, products, telecommunications, etc., supporting one another as we're all on this journey together.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So the biggest failure, without doubt, is they just don't get started. There's a lot that give up even before they open the impact assessment review, and the impact assessment review, that looks too hard, I'm not going to do it. So that is singularly the biggest failure. Once they get started, there is generally, as long as they're a good business in the first place, we're not going to take the devil and turn them into an angel. That's not the job of people. But everyone at the moment that I'm dealing with is generally a good business. They're coming from a good place, they want to do the right thing. So what this helps them to do is identify what they're doing well and celebrate that, and then identify some areas where they could improve and help give them some improvement plans as to what they can do to do that. So I don't think there's any real failings apart from just get started.
Yeah, excellent. An awful lot. I think I've answered some of it in the previous questions that we've spoken about today, but ultimately, I always had a vision that the company should have a charter, a way that you interact with customers, suppliers, your team, a DNA that defines you as you within that business. But with any startup, you end up not getting around to certain things, and you kind of get lost in the kind of process of what we're doing. And I thought, through this pandemic, this period of reflection, I kept coming back to this charter and this idea, and it kind of dawned upon me one day. It's the simplest way to do this is to have 5 cornerstone values in the business that you interview people by, that you speak to customers around, that you liaise with suppliers that believe in the same values, and everything kind of anchors back to the values. And you can't go far wrong with all values. I think there's a coalition at the moment in the world with people wanting to have meaning and purpose. And in fact, I was listening to the BBC World Service the other day on the way into work, and it said around Generation X. And Generation X apparently now more interested in business with purpose than actually the monetary side. And I think that's a real shift, right, in where we've been over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And the same for me. And another story was, I always kind of had the vision that one day I would love my niece and nephew to come and work at my business. And would I feel proud that they could come and join a business that had its heart in the right place? And I don't think we necessarily always lived up to these values. And whilst our heart was in the right place, we needed to do more. And that's kind of what spurred it on.
Great.
Yeah, it was an exciting, but also slightly anxious time. I'm glad we're there now.
Good, I'm glad you're there too.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so you go through your B Corp certification, you get north of 80 points, and then you'll be recertified every 3 years. But in the interim 2 years, you'll need to publish your own annual social and environmental impact report. So it's a bit like you're marking your own homework for 2 years, then teacher comes back and marks it in year 3. So you can't sit still. The other thing is, the impact assessment tool itself changes every 3 years. So you can't say in 3 years' time, the same answers as 3 years ago, give you the same marks. It doesn't work like that. There's a new iteration of the impact assessment tool that comes out every 3 years, and it'll make sure that you're moving forwards and keeping holding you to account.
Yeah, and I read recently that the marks that you have for people, the assessment, you have to score fairly high marks in each of these different sections. So it's a more kind of well-rounded view of all the different fundamentals.
Correct. In the next iteration, they're going to take that into account, so there's no loopholes.
Yeah. And I think that's important, isn't it? Because you have to get better. Companies have to get better. In the same way we work in the technology field, technology's got better and enable us to do better things. And so the yardstick that we have to measure these things continually has to be tested as well.
Yeah.
And it's good to see that B Corp do that, because we're getting to this point where companies continually have to improve and get better year to year. And I think with topics like the Better Business Act, the lobbying at the moment, it's all very much this trend, a real positive trend that we see, especially given economics and things that are going on in Eastern Europe at the moment. It's a real vein of positivity despite things.
Yeah, for sure.
Andy, thank you for the Q&A today. It's been really great, and hopefully it's been useful for people viewing it. Quick fire questions to end the session. Favourite Brisbane slang word?
Love it. 100%. Tom, favourite Bristol bar?
Flip side, because it's a stone's throw from my house. Favourite holiday destination?
Marrakesh, easy. Go to lazy dinner?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Probably red meat and fruit.
What a combination. Okay.
Working hard or hardly working?
Working hard, definitely. Book smart or street smart?
That's an interesting question. I think you need to be both, but I would say err on the side of street smart, because what you read isn't necessarily how life is.
Good answer. Nice one. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.